indicating?
That he was the first pioneer to build the first frame house in the town of Persia,
Okay.
which is on Beach Street.
Okay.
Was on Beach Street.
So your kids
There's a
burned it
monument
down.
to him?
Some kids burned it down.
He also names our valley.
Names are reality.
Well, good afternoon, folks. My name's Steve Boland, and I'm here from a place called Utica, New York, representing the Utica Observer Dispatch. And we were doing a little research here on your tannery, when then we ran across another fellow's name who was known all across New York State. It was Otto Gutekunst. And I'm going to give you a little presentation on him, but before I do that, I'm going to digress a little bit and tell you again, why would a reporter from Utica, New York be here in a little town called Gowanda? Well, back in the old days, there used to be many tanneries all over the country, almost every town had one. Also, there was a lot of shoe factories, especially along the Erie Canal, all the way from Albany to Buffalo. And especially in a place called the Mohawk Valley, and that would be from Utica to Albany. Many industries there along the old Erie Canal. One of the places called Dowsville, New York, where a company called, and I'll give you the exact name, the Peter Green Company, made high-end shoes back in those days. And does anybody here, I know some of you do, recognize these shoes? What are they called?
Wingtips.
Wingtips, right. They made high-end wingtips at this place in Dowsville, New York. And by the way, that place was famous for something else, baseball bats. First place to make baseball bats in the 1800s was there in Dowsville, New York. You have to remember, Abner Doubleday was from Cooperstown, New York, which is only 30 miles away from Dowsville. So, they made these type of shoes. That company bought leather goods from all over New York State, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, and Ohio. And guess where one of the places was they bought leather? Gowanda, New York. Gowanda, New York. Okay, let's get back to Otto here. Otto was born July 2nd, 1869 in Colden, New York. He was the son of Jacob and Elizabeth. Otto attended public school in Colden, after which he was employed by a company engaged in the bottling of soft drinks and beer in Colden, New York. And around 1900, but we don't have the exact date, he moved to Gowanda, New York, where he was associated with the bottling and beer business until approximately 1920. He sold his interest in that business, and approximately 1923 and after, he engaged in the manufacture of vinegar in Gowanda, and it was a big company. He was also the proprietor of the Gowanda Creamery, and that was the name of it, the Gowanda Creamery. He produced a lot of products there. Also, that business was located at 1 Palmer Street in Gowanda. He lived in a house right in Gowanda. Does everybody here knows where Sand Hill is, right? You know where McDonald's is? The building across the street from McDonald's, that brick building was his home.
Group home.
Group home by, I think it's called the Western New York GDSO or something like that, right? That was his home. That was his home. He also then served as a trustee in the village, and he got really interested in politics. He was the mayor after 1933 for quite a while, and it was this time that he became one of the most progressive businessmen and mayors that this village of Gowanda has ever seen. I'll give you an example of things he did during his administration. As mayor, many civic achievements were made, among which are the erection of the post office, the new municipal building, the public library, the waterworks, the reservoir, a new subdivision, and also the paving of street roads in Gowanda. And guess what, folks? he did that without raising any taxes in the village. That was absolutely amazing in itself. After that, he became involved more and more in his businesses and like that. And as you can see, one of his businesses was the Gowanda Creamery. And it was pretty big. After he retired, he actually sold the creamery to this place, Farner Parker. I think all of us here have been at Farner Parker one time or another. Even me from Utica. After he was doing that, he also had a farm. And then, do you know where the farm was? Again, that brick building. There was a barn behind it, and there was a chicken coop behind it. And he had 50 acres around there. And that was his farm. He loved horses. He raised horses and had a lot of fun with his horses. Now, he also had a few children. One of them also worked for a newspaper that used to be in Buffalo called the Courier Express. Anybody remember that? He worked for that. Another one lived in Buffalo and was very successful in those businesses. Otto died Tuesday, January 5th, 1960. The services were held at the First Presbyterian Church. That's the church near St. Joe's in Gowanda, New York. Now I have here for you folks some things from the museum. A couple of things here I'm going to pass around. Show some advertisements, and they were quite creative back in those days. You can pass it around after you look at it. Quite funny, some of the things they say to get people to buy their products. Also, I have when his vinegar factory actually caught on fire and burned. Article here. Another one when he sold the business to Farner Parker. This is when the man passed away, and it's a picture of him. This is an actual historical type research paper on his bottling factory that was in Gowanda. It was quite famous over the western New York area. And it has pictures of the logos on the bottles, etc. Again, you can look at these. And this is when he retired after 86 years of working. He retired from his businesses. It has pictures of him and also some of the many other things that he did as a businessman. If you have any other further specific questions, you'll have to ask Phil Palin. He knows a really lot about it. Okay, I'll get past these around and look at. And again, you can see these bottles. These are actual bottles from there. It's in the museum here in Gowanda. He had one of his sons work for Gowanda Oil Company.
Yeah, that's one.
One of his sons. One of his sons worked for Gowanda Oil Company. You can see some of his relatives, ancestors like that are buried here also. Right. Again, being of... Now here's an interesting thing. 6 of his brothers, well he had 7, there were 7 children in the family. 6 of them were born in Germany. And Otto was the only one born in America. The rest of them had come over, you know, as a whole family in the 1800s. And he was the only one born in the United States. And of course, he went to school in Poland.
I wonder if he made the pop and the beer and that sort of thing, or just bottled it.
My understanding, it was a manufacturing plant.
It was.
Matter of fact, Phil's father worked for him in the vinegar factory. And if you ever see Phil's dad, you can ask him about it, because he actually worked there for the man for quite a few years, I guess.
And was that in that same area, the vinegar factory?
Right across the tracks, I think, on the right.
At One Palmer or at...
He had different facilities, okay? The creamery was in a different location than the vinegar factory. And I know one of the facilities was at 1 Palmer Street.
Back of the foundry in there.
Well, I'm from here, but I live in Virginia.
Well, folks, that's all I have for the presentation today. I'm honored to be in your presence, and thank you for coming along and seeing this wonderful mini forest lawn here in Gowanda, New York, which it does remind me of Forest Lawn a little bit. Really nice. You have
And who are you? What is your name?
Steve Boland. It is really Steve Boland.
Are you a preacher?